All right, it seems like we are all ready to start. Good morning to everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the first Spin-off Competence Lab webinar. My name is Juan Ramon Real. I work as a technical manager for the StartUp project at the European University of the Seas. And with the Spin-off Competence Lab, the CU Alliance intends to promote entrepreneurship among our research communities by providing our young, our early career researchers with training, with educational training, so that they can develop their own spin-off companies, and broadly speaking, they can turn their research projects into business ideas. In this first webinar that is kicking off the Spin-off Competence Lab, we have the pleasure to have with us Raúl Estrada. He's an entrepreneur with extensive experience in international backgrounds, in international companies. He's also a PhD candidate at the University of Cádiz, and he will be delivering a lesson, a live lesson that, by the way, is being live streamed on YouTube and will be later uploaded to the YouTube platform in short pieces. He will be introducing all of you to the Lean Startup methodology. He's the expert. I have no more words to say for now. So, Raúl, if you are ready, the floor is yours. First of all, thank you very much for being here today with us, and let's go. Is everything all right, Raúl, with your audio? Maybe you need me. Yes, give me 1 second. Now.
Okay, now it's working. Good morning, everybody. Okay, thank you for being here today. We know nowadays how hard it is to find time to attain this kind of event. So we really hope you find this interesting and super useful. First of all, I would like to thank the University of Cádiz and the Research EU project for inviting me. It's a real pleasure. Thank you, Juanra, and the rest of the team for putting this together and giving everybody the opportunity to have access to this webinar. Okay. My idea for the session, as Juanra said, we are going to stream. We are streaming the session and we're going to record it. So I hope the session is very dynamic. You can send any messages in the chat, and if you want, you can raise your hand or anything, and we will try to give a permission for you guys to ask any questions you have. But I have tried to structure the session in different blocks, very clear, so that it's easier for people who are watching this at a later moment to access the content. Okay. Let me see if I can. Yes. All right. So basically, the idea is I've prepared 5 different sections for this webinar, for these 2 hours, more or less. We will have some more time at the end for a Q&A. But we have 5 different sections. I will make a very brief introduction, a presentation about myself, about the rest of the webinar, a little bit about a concept that I think is super important. It's super important before we start getting into the Lean Startup methodology. Okay. Then the core of the session will be about Lean Startup, and I've divided again this into 2 different parts. One a little bit more general, so that we can have an idea of how it merged this methodology, why, and what are the main concepts around this. And then we will get into the details of how to implement it. What are the main ideas, the main concepts that you need to use this methodology in your projects if you are thinking about starting a company, or you already have started and you want to improve your working methodology. Okay. The next section will be about the Lean Canvas, which is something is a tool that it can be useful for you to put a little bit of structure into this procedure. Okay, the fourth part will be about some challenges that I myself would like to share with you. This is not from the author of the Lean methodology. This is my own value added, let's say. And it's I've been working with the spin-offs, the spin-outs for many years. I advise them, and I've been working hand in hand with them, and I've seen some of the main challenges you can experience. Okay, so I've taken the liberty to have collected them so that I can share with you. And in the end, I would like to share with you a few examples of how some famous companies have used the methodology or the Lean Canvas, etc. Okay, and just the last part will be the Q&A session. Okay. As I said, if you have any questions during the session, chat or raise your hand. But in between sections, I've always put just one slide for I don't know, in case anybody wants to ask anything before moving on. Okay. All right. So let's jump into it. By training, this is just my personal presentation. Okay. By training, I'm an economist and an anthropologist. I come from the University of Cadiz, which is part of the Research EU project. And I also have a master's in business internationalization. I've worked with startups in the whole process of entering new markets and this kind of challenges, the strategies involved. And as Juan said, I'm also a PhD candidate, and the focus of my thesis is precisely startups, okay, nascent companies, companies that are starting and what challenges they face, okay. I have over 20 years of experience, international experience. And right now, 12 of them are just focused in this kind of startups, okay? This is my LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out today, in a couple of months, in a couple of years, whenever you have any questions or anything about Lean Startup or about your projects, your company, just feel free to reach out to me. And on the right, just so that you have an overview of what I've done academically and professionally, these are the institutions I've worked with at an academic level. And on the right, I have the companies I've had the pleasure to work for, okay? Ranging from one of the largest companies in Spain to the Spanish embassy in Brazil as an advisor to companies internationalizing their operations. Light in the Box is one of the main examples. I will share more about this later, okay? I will share some details about Lean Startup and Light in the Box later. Basically, I was living in China for almost 10 years. And I had the opportunity to enter this startup at a pre-seed stage and was part of the global expansion team all the way after the IPO. Okay. And later on, I joined Dimune, which is a startup incubator. So again, working every day with projects that wanted to just start at the beginning. And right now, I'm the CEO of a company which is actually related to this as well, okay? How to analyze entrepreneurial teams and how to identify potential startups. All right. As a part of the presentation part, I don't know. I think it's super important to know that Lean Startup is a movement that already has almost 15 years of history. Okay, it's not totally new methodology. Of course, it's constantly evolving. But it's something that we already have a track record, okay? It's proven its usefulness. So here, apart from the two books, okay, the original one, the Lean Startup, and then the Startup Way, which is the most recent one, I really encourage you to read them. Sorry, if you are interested. But also some free available content around the internet, okay? The first three links are extremely related with the author of the Lean Startup methodology. Then I have another one for Steve Blank, which is also a reference, and I encourage you to read about him and about his work. And then these are two private institutions, Y Combinator and Techstars, are two of the largest startup accelerators in the world, and they have plenty of free available resources for entrepreneurs. You can check many things about examples, about tools, about, a lot of free resources, okay? So just later on, if you want to go deeper, feel free to access this resource. Okay. All right. Before we jump into Lean Startup in the next session, I told you by training I'm an economist and anthropologist, and I don't know. Since the audience today is very academic, I think it's interesting to put with a little bit more rigor something that we all know. Okay, and this concept is called cargo cult. You have the references here, so you can check them. But what is it? Basically, is when someone tries to copy or imitate a behavior or practice without understanding the underlying causes, okay, the causal relationship, for example. This is way more frequent than we think. And in startups, because of something we will check later, which is called liability of newness, if you take too much time to apply practices that you don't understand, normally it could lead to disappearance, okay? Just closing the startup before even starts getting traction, okay? This is a concept that we all have the intuition behind it, but the history is that, wow, you can read it here. This is a citation directly. I just copied it, okay? But you can see here that, okay, when we look at indigenous people from Melanesia, actually they saw the airplanes coming with a lot of manufactured items from Europe, for example, from the US, and they tried to copy them made of wood. They didn't know how it worked. They only knew the appearance, right? And sometimes we laugh at those practices. But what the Lean Startup, and this is the example exactly they have in this book, is some people think that just by applying Scrum or applying any other agile methodology, well, we're doing the right thing. When we're doing pretty much what these people were doing, just copy something expecting that it will work when it has absolutely nothing to do with the original idea, okay? And let me just pause here for a second and share with you two examples so that this is extremely clear. One of them is with Light in the Box. As I told you, I was part of this project for a few years. And this is inspired on the real story, but it may or may not be 100% true, okay? for confidential reasons, etc. But okay, at that time, we had the challenge of opening a warehouse in Europe. We were a startup, a scale-up. We already had hundreds of thousands of customers, so we were not really a startup. We were a little bit farther down the road. But we had the option that we proposed, the team proposed, which was, okay, let's analyze where to put the warehouse according to where our customers are. And let's minimize the time to delivery or optimize the price, the cost of the shipping, etc. Different variables, right? And then there is another approach, which is, okay, why don't we just see what the leaders are doing? Why don't we see what Amazon is doing, what Amazon did, and we just copy it without really understanding why they did it? Well, it turns out that if we follow the first approach, the logical placement for the warehouse would be Germany or France or something like that, because those are the main markets in Europe. But Amazon started their warehouse at that time in Poland. And I will tell you, basically for the salaries of the workers and the law regulation, the labor regulation. So if you're comparing a 3,000 people warehouse with a 10 people warehouse, then the reason was totally flawed for the beginning, okay? And the second example is something that you probably can be more familiar with, which is, I put here the logo of Google AdSense, but it applies to any advertising business model, okay? Basically, you start your project, whatever it is you're building. It can be a software, it can be a new hardware, or I don't know, a chemical process to develop plant-based meat, whatever. Okay. Some people just copy what others are doing, and they think they can make money by using advertising, for example, or using any other practice. But as it turns out, you need to understand how that works. You need to have, you need to pass a threshold of users so that monetizing through advertising makes sense. And I personally, unfortunately, I've seen a large number of projects failing by failing in understanding how to apply these practices. Okay, just copy paste them without understanding how they work. Okay. All right. So I don't know if you have any questions. As I said, this slide will mark very clear for those of you watching today and for those of you watching a later time this webinar, the separation between the different sections. Okay. So if you have any questions now, Juanra, I'm not looking at the chat. I don't have I'm not paying attention, but you let me know. Okay, if there are questions or anything I need to stop, just let me know at this moment. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you, Raul. Thank you very much. So far, I have only identified one short question related to certificates of attendance. So if you allow me, Raul, in just 1 second, just to let everyone know, certificates of attendance will be sent to all participants in this webinar. Once the webinar has taken place, your email addresses will be extracted from the attendance list automatically generated by Zoom. Therefore, you will be receiving your certificates of attendance on the email account you have used to register on Zoom. All right, just to clarify that. And so far, and I think I can't see any question related to contents. So I suppose that we are ready to go on.
Perfect. Great. So maybe some of you, I don't know if you knew about this methodology before or not, but the intuition behind this is in startup, many people know about this through the book or because of the book. Okay. But this is, of course, a lot more. So let's take a step back and let's first, in this general part, talk about how and why Lean Startup emerged. Okay, let me just go through how was the traditional way of creating a company, and I put here this comment: traditional in the sense of first of all, it's inherited from management of established companies. Okay, so there was not a framework that could apply to startups. This was a really new phenomenon. So there were no management practice to apply to these cases. So the best thing we could do is, what is the traditional way of creating a company, or of actually, for that matter, managing a company? It could be a new division, a new business line, a new product, launching a new product, a new service, or anything. Okay. Well, what practice shows, what evidence shows, is that most of the time it starts with an idea. Okay, it starts with an idea which is not necessarily linked to what it's called in this jargon, a pain. Okay, so it's just someone thinks that, okay, why don't we launch this project, or why don't we create a new product for this, or why don't we change that? Why we don't create a company to do something? Okay. Then after some validation, some checks, the normal way is to then go on and develop a business plan. Okay, we put together one person, or it could be we put together a team, and then we develop a business plan with some assumptions about the market. We make some projections, some forecasts, and maybe, depending on the size of the company, a few months later, after spending a ton of time doing the business plan, then we decide to launch the project, to launch the idea. And then what? Then what happens? Well, the problem is that many times, most of the times, and I don't know if you know the statistics, but the most widespread accepted number is that about 90% of startups fail within 3 years of starting their business. So what is the problem? That applying this approach, it's taking a lot of resources from the startup, it's taking a lot of time, Actually, it doesn't take into consideration the reality of the startup, which is, okay, in an established company, you have some history, some financial history, you have accounting, you have your financial department, you have I don't know, there was no data about Uber before Uber. There was no data about Airbnb before Airbnb. They created those businesses, right? But if you're in a big company, probably you have data about your own startup, your own company or your sector at least. But a startup faces a lot of uncertainty. There is no data. There's like an obvious lack of data about your business, about the future. You do not have time, and also your resources are extremely limited. Okay, this is the concept I told you about earlier, the liability of newness. Is the same environment, the same problems that like an established company could face, and it doesn't happen anything, it's just a delay. For a startup, it could mean just disappearing, okay? And what is another problem with this? Okay, if we wait, let's say 6 months to launch the project, and we create a proper soft launch or a launch event, and we do a lot of PR, we let a lot of people know about the idea, about the project, and then it fails. And this has happened a lot. This has happened a lot. It's happened to Google, it's happened to Microsoft, it's happened to pretty much any big company. Well, it turns out that then you have a bigger problem, okay? So more or less to try to solve or to improve this is, okay, how do we come up with a framework that actually takes into account the reality of the startups, okay? Well, so in 2008, Eric Ries proposed this framework, this methodology, okay? The book was published 3 years later, but this started in 2008, almost 15 years ago, as I said earlier. What is important about this, because is a concept of paramount importance in the lean startup, is that Eric didn't just make a thought experiment, as it could be done in a more scientific, academic setting, right? He was not just thinking about how to do this or just observing how other people were doing this. No, he had this pain, as we talked just in the previous slide. He didn't come up with an idea. He was having this pain. He's suffering. Some of his companies failed because of this, okay? So he put into this methodology his personal experience. He had a very deep knowledge of what this problem was and why these practices were failing, okay? Then at that time, there was a new wave of management approaches, where the lean management came from manufacturing and from other areas of management. Then he started linking these practices with his personal experience, and then something about also customer development, how we have a customer-centric approach, okay? And originally he took these three concepts, these three areas, and tried to apply them to high-tech startups, okay? That was the original application of the lean startup. However, during the last 15 years, this has evolved to have a wider application at the moment, okay? Mostly it applies to software companies with high growth potential, but it can be applied to pretty much any project. It can be directed to final customers or to industrial customers, whatever, okay? What are some of the ideas behind the intuition of lean startup? Then, okay, we know how he came up with the idea, but what are some of the underlying ideas about this intuition? Okay, well, one of them, and this is not, I think it's not written like this literally, at least not in the book or in any of the talks you can hear him talking about the lean startup, is that ideas are pretty much worthless. And worthless is a word I chose, okay? As I said, it's not from him, okay? But, okay, every one of us can have a lot of ideas, pretty much on a daily basis. However, what it makes a difference, what really matters, and this comes from him as well, is the execution. Okay. It's commonly said that it's better to have a good team executing a bad idea, because you can change the idea. We will talk about this later, but than having a great idea with a poorly executed executing team. Okay, because then it's aimed to failure. Then the lean startup, another of the underlying concepts, it's just this balance between excessive planning, as we just mentioned earlier. It doesn't make sense for a startup to spend 6 months doing a business plan, but it's also not chaos. Okay, it doesn't mean let's start doing things and wait what happens, wait and see. It's not that. Okay, so he developed what it's called the build, measure, learn loop. All right, we'll have another slide later about this, but basically it's just an iterative process in which we build something, we measure the impact we have from the customers, in the customers, and then we try to extract some learnings from this. Okay, we change completely the way we measure progress. Okay, it's not something so tangible in terms of how many products we build, how many sales we have. It's more about how much we learn. Okay, and then we continue with the loop, and we see when this process starts losing its efficiency. Okay, as I said, more on this later. Something that it's I think extremely important for an audience like you guys today is, okay, this loop, it's normally called build, measure, learn, but it starts backwards. Okay, he tried, and he's a really smart guy, he tried to have a more scientific approach, but let's take this with caution, okay? Because we started the process with the learning part. So we define what we want to learn, what hypothesis we establish, as we would do in one of our research papers or anything. Then we measure what we're doing, and then we build about that, okay? But what's the problem? And that's why I highlighted this hypothesis. Keep in mind that hypotheses in lean startup are not poorly defined, but are not as rigorous as in a scientific setting. Okay, this hypothesis basically could be pretty much I don't know, anything from we think that people would benefit from having an app in their phone to call a taxi, to call a car instead of a taxi. Okay, this is a hypothesis. And it doesn't need to have an experiment or observational data with a specific sample size. No, it's more about intuition. Here is more about pragmatism, being practical. Okay, you have a few customers repeating the same opinion. Basically, you take that as a possible generalization, and then you move on. Okay, because if you're wrong, it's okay. You're iterating so fast that the process will correct itself. Okay, so you don't need to wait and have 300 people confirming your hypotheses or something like that. Okay. Sorry about that. All right, and then this comes for the last of the general concepts, I think. Okay, which is not a concept in itself, is a set of concepts. It's what I call here the different fits. I don't know if you're familiar with this, but throughout the whole business creation process, at least in the startup environment, people use these terms. Founder idea fit. What does it mean? Okay, if you are working, if you want to develop an artificial intelligence system to improve efficiency of water usage in agriculture, that's a great idea. It's an amazing idea. Okay. Do you have any background in artificial intelligence? Do you have any background in agriculture? Do any of your teammates have that background? So that is what we call the founder idea fit. All right. This is not really a deal breaker, but it's really important. Okay. For everything, for the potential success of the company, for receiving investment, for receiving public support. Okay. There has to be a nice founder idea fit. Then I will skip the product market because that's one of the most important. But okay, we also have a problem solution fit, what we call a problem solution fit. Okay, You've identified a problem, like, all right, many companies suffer from cyber attacks. All right. Then you want to solve this by making them install a 1 million euros solution, even for SMEs, small companies, small and medium enterprises. Well, maybe the solution is not good. There is no fit between the solution you're proposing because it's too expensive and the problem you want to solve. Okay. So then this also can be a deal breaker, even more important than the previous one. Okay. And then there are many of them. Actually, in my opinion, this is getting a little bit too fashionable now, and everybody's making up new fits every day. Okay. But I will finish with the product channel fit, which is, in my opinion, is also one of the most important ones. Okay. Which is, all right, let's assume that you have a founder idea fit, you have problem solution fit, and you even have product market fit. We will talk about it later. But how about product channel fit? Product channel fit means once all those previous fits have been met, how do you acquire your customers? What channels do you use to acquire your customers? Do you just make advertisement in radio, TV, like in the last century? Do you use AdWords? Do you use any other affiliation? Do you hire a team of 20 salespeople to help you sell the product? Okay, so those channels, the fit between the channels you are either using and your product is also something we need to validate through this lean startup methodology. Okay. And although we will talk about product market fit later, I've highlighted it here because of something super important. All the others are fits that they are nice to have. They can give you an intuition about or certain evidence about the potential of your company. But to make a research analogy, okay, any of us can be writing different research papers, right? Maybe throughout your career, you will write 10, 20, whatever, how many of them you write. But maybe the paper that allows you, that entitles you to get your PhD degree, that is a milestone. It may or may not be the one you're more proud of, the one with more impact, with more citations, or the highest quality one. But it's a milestone in your career because it allows you to become a doctor, right? Or to become another title, or in your scale hierarchy. Okay, so product market fit is the same. When you reach product market fit, first of all, you decrease your odds of failing. Okay, I mean, it's like, okay, we are safer now. Okay, seriously, the whole team reduces the stress level. I can guarantee you that. Okay, but on the other hand, even from a more terminological perspective, you start not being, or you stop being a startup. Okay, then you are not experimenting anymore. Then you can scale. You pass from startup to scale up. Okay. All right, and then to finish this general part, one of them, this concept is of paramount importance. I don't know if you've heard MVP before. And normally, especially for people who like sports or something like this, MVP it's more associated with like most valuable player, something like that, right? Nothing to do with that. Okay. MVP in this context stands for minimum viable product. Okay. And there are, again, two ways. The traditional way for an established company is, okay, we see there is a problem. We need a mobility solution to take a person from point A to B, or a cargo from point A to B, and we need to develop a solution. We need to develop a product. Okay, maybe here, of course, this is a cartoon, but okay, maybe someone would start by building the engine, which is the most important part, or another one would say, no, let's start with the chassis, which is the cheapest one, or the one that people will actually see. All right, and then you start working on the different pieces. But after every step of the process, you still have nothing that the customer can benefit from. Okay. So this is the traditional way. What is the problem? The problem is that, again, you have to wait for normally months, if not years, until you have something to offer to the market. And by the time you hit the market, maybe it has already changed. Maybe your solution is obsolete. So how do we change that? by doing like you can see in the cartoon. You offer something that, okay, maybe you use a skateboard. It's not the most comfortable one. Maybe it's not useful if you want to take more than one person, or if it's raining, or you name it. But in certain contexts, it can take you from point A to point B. And then the customer will come up with those problems. Will tell you, hey, this is good, but I need to go to the office and it takes me too long, or I need to go with a second person, okay? So then you iterate with your product and you create a better product, taking into account the customer's feedback, basically, okay? Instead of you building on hypothesis after hypothesis, you build one hypothesis, you test it as soon as possible, and then incorporate the feedback of the customer as soon as possible. This in Silicon Valley and these environments, these fancy environments, it's normally summarized as fail fast, okay? It doesn't matter if you fail. The most important thing is that you do it in a fast way. Don't take 12 months to find out that your product doesn't really solve a problem and nobody wants to buy it, okay? Because we will see that at the end of the session. But I already mentioned it earlier. About 90% of the startups fail, and one of the most commonly accepted reasons for failure is lack of product market fit. What does it mean? Nobody wants to buy your product. You build something that in the end people don't buy. As simple as that, okay? We will go in details later to see other reasons and everything, but if you manage to achieve product market fit, pretty much you have decreased your risk by, I don't know, a factor of 3 or 4, something like that. Also, super important, okay, about this concept. Super important. Let me see how we go on time, okay, more or less. Super important about this concept. And this is something that we have to balance, okay? An MVP, one thing is what theory says, and another one is what practice shows, or how people use this concept. And the truth is that still today, people use this in 2 different ways. One more inspired in lean manufacturing, which is minimum viable product would be the minimum amount of functionality that you can show to a customer and still create value for them, okay? The customer can use, which is more or less what I just explained about this graph, this diagram. However, a more rigorous conceptualization of the lean startup is, the lean startup concept MVP is not how to create value for the customer, is how to obtain information from the customer. So really an MVP is the minimum product that we can show to a customer and learn from that interaction, okay? You will see about that later. Yeah, sorry, I have that later in the 5th section, okay? But basically, because an MVP, it can even not be a product, okay? I could just be talking to you about something that I haven't built yet. So I don't even have the product. I just have the idea. I'm telling you my vision of what I want to build. So if just with that talk, I can extract learning from it, then it could be an MVP, okay? It's a special kind of MVP for the lean startup approach. All right, so the general section of the lean startup, it's over. I don't know if you guys have any questions, if there is anything in the chat. Juanra, can you help me, please? If not, we move on.
Thank you, Raul. As far as I can see, there are no new comments on the chat. However, I would like to take advantage of the situation to really congratulate you. I'm quite surprised and quite amused at your public speaking skills, I must say. So and definitely the lean startup methodology seems like a really helper when it comes to defining and to identifying those outstanding ideas from those who are just current ideas that many other people might have already had previously. Anyways, I don't want to delay this too much. So
no, but it's good, Juanra, and actually your appreciation is great, because let's take this small break, okay? And actually, it helps people also. I don't know, and just let that sink, okay? What we just talked about, but there is a paper published, because we are here in a context in which we will need to balance practitioners settings with more like scholars situation, right? So there is a paper published last year from a an amazing research group from Canada, which is they develop a new approach that is called VIA or VIA. I don't know. I don't even know how to pronounce because it's an acronym. It's Venture Idea Assessment, and it's funny. We will cut this from the video later, okay? But it's funny because you guys know, and I have that later in one slide, right? But the Nobel Prize this year for physics has gone through a research group about proving something about quantum physics, right? About about proving how something doesn't have an intrinsic value, right? And this group in VIA, what they try to do is actually measure how valid an idea is outside of this environment, right? Which for me, it's an amazing, it's a great exercise, okay? So that we can see how these things combine, you know? I mean, as an investor, as a public institution, as a university, can we really assess an idea independently of those fits that we were talking about? This is an amazing topic. Maybe another webinar, okay, Juanra?
Absolutely, absolutely.
But yeah, it's a great appreciation.
There is one participant that would like to intervene, talking, not writing on the chat. So as of now, if all of you agree with that, all those who may want to talk directly, to speak, to use their microphone, may raise their virtual hand so that I can identify them and I can give them the authorization for opening their micros. Okay, so for example, now we have one participant, Daisy, who would like to intervene. So Daisy, I will authorize your micro so that you will be able to speak now. All right.
Hello. Good morning,
Hello.
everybody. Hi, I just want to say, like, now I understand what is Lean Startup, because I started like a project, a 3D platform to promote global learning experience for students. But now with your explanation, I understand why my project failed, because it was too much, like it was a big idea and I couldn't have something tangible to show my product. So that's why I failed. And just now I understand why my product failed and my idea, but that was just really good learning. I just want to say that. And I'm learning a lot during this webinar.
Thank you, Daisy. Thank you so much. And I'm sorry about your project. Maybe you can go back to it later or something. But unfortunately, and this is really sad, okay? Because I work with startups all the time. With a lot of them, and you can see the passion. This is one of the main factors, right? Like the passion people put in their projects. And sometimes by learning these basic things, you can really avoid a lot of problems, you know? So this is part of my interest also in sharing these things with you, okay? Just as an anecdote, when I advise startups and I have a team or something, I always explain to them, I see these approaches okay, as a medical comparison. Okay, we are doctors in the sense of medical doctors, okay? And then the startups are the patients. Some of them, they come with problems. I cannot find customers. My acquisition price is too high. My marketing strategy is not right. So those are okay-ish problems. But for startups, like early stage startups, we are what we call UCI. Okay, like the emergency, like the really emergency room, you know, like when people come and they're about to die. You know, so really they are in critical conditions, all right? So for me, the job that we do, sorry, this is a little bit, not promotion, but this is a little bit off the topic, but this job of helping startups and the Lean Startup, it's an amazing framework for that. It actually helps a lot of companies, you know, like they were just gearing towards failure. So I don't know, Daisy, if I can help you after that with anything, let me know, okay?
Yeah, it would be great. Like, it's just like my advisor at that time when I started, he's like, make a trick being big, like making this bigger. But that was too big that I couldn't handle. So it's better to start small, like going little by little than dreaming big and you can handle. You don't have the resources, don't have the technology and to do it, make it happen. So that's something that.
And just before because I'm sharing this because it's also in another slide later, but just because you mentioned it's super important in your setting. We as researchers as well, sometimes we have a research project that it takes months, years to build, So it's okay. If you just want to contribute to science, that's perfect. Of course, that's actually our main goal, right? But when we start talking about how to do this technology transfer to society or this kind of innovative solutions, this is a big issue, because maybe by the time you can implement that, the research project has taken 5 years. Maybe the technology is already obsolete or something. So it's a very good comment as well. Okay, Daisy, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. So thank you, Daisy. And let's move. Let's move. So now to some concepts a little bit more specific. All right. We've seen the intuition behind the Lean Startup, why it emerged, some of the main concepts and this kind of things. But let's go to what the author of the methodology says. Okay. First idea: entrepreneurs are everywhere. We have to avoid the entrepreneurial myth. Is someone from Silicon Valley with a groundbreaking idea, with excellent skills? No, there is actually like the scientific method that anybody by applying the scientific method. So pretty much anybody by applying the entrepreneurial method, it could be Lean Startup or any other method, can become an entrepreneur. Okay, and actually there are plenty of research streams trying to understand what it's called entrepreneurial spirit, right? It's not, you may be a potential entrepreneur, or you can have an entrepreneurial spirit and actually not become an entrepreneur, a de facto entrepreneur. Okay, you may not start a company for whatever reasons, for lack of resources, network, or anything. Okay, so that it's one of the points that sometimes it seems obvious, but we tend to overlook it. Okay. The second thing is that entrepreneurship is, at the end of the day, it's just management. It's just a different kind of management. You cannot apply, we just saw, you cannot apply the general management practices because they don't apply when uncertainty is the key. A startup doesn't even know if they will survive, if they will have salary to pay, money to pay the salaries next month. So general management practices cannot be applied here. All right, it has to be context sensitive. Then the third concept is what it's called validated learning. And again, let's be very cautious about this. By validated here, it just, I have more than 5 customers who say this is not working. Let's assume it's true. Okay, if I was wrong because the sample was too small, or because I didn't choose the sample correctly and I asked the wrong customers, don't worry. In the next iteration, it will be just in 1 week, 2 weeks, we will find out. All right. So the key concept here is validated learning. Learn as quickly as possible. Then I already mentioned it, and we have a slide now for this, but the build, measure, learn approach. Again, this is, as we talked at the beginning about the cargo code. It's not just you implement this approach and everything will work. You need to understand the logic behind this. Why do we want to build, measure, and learn? In what order? What things are the most important? And how to integrate this feedback into the procedure? Okay. And finally, for those of you more familiar with accounting, innovation accounting. Innovation accounting. This is also that any company, first because it's a legal obligation, needs to record their transactions through their accounting team or external accountant or anything. But accounting, it comes from accountability. How do we hold accountable those people doing things. But in a startup, we don't even know, as I said, we don't even know who we are yet. Maybe next month we will change who we are, what we do. We have evolved the product, okay? So how do we hold people accountable? So we have to change the practices. We don't manage people. We don't manage the team. We don't control the team or the procedures by recording how much money we spent in something. It's about how much we learn, how many contacts we made, how many interviews, okay? And then, okay, we've been, just to end up, okay, but after all this, what is a startup? Because we are talking about lean startup, right? But what is it, a startup? And the truth is, well, I've participated in even in public auditions, the government asking for advice from expert panels, etc. And there is no real consensus. There are some traditional definitions. So the person who defined the concept initially, I mean, they have something to say, right? The concept has evolved. In practice, people use it differently. Some people pay more attention to certain attributes of a startup or not. So I will give you my idea, okay? I'll give you my idea. A startup, traditionally, is a technological company. So it has to be like either with a very strong technological or knowledge-based project, which, for example, for this audience is great, right? It's pretty much as technological or knowledge-based as it can get. Second, it has to have the potential for growth, all right? If it's a company, which is great, and we need those companies, all right, in society. If it's just a small company, just like a small store in a city or anything, that's great. But that is not a startup. And I mean, for that kind of project, you wouldn't even need lean startup. Okay, if you want to open a grocery store in your city or something like that, or a clothes store or something similar. Scalability. This is one of the most controversial attributes, because the scalability, it means basically, like the theoretical definition is just that as you grow, your revenue grows faster than your costs. Okay, so for example, if you sell clothes and you want to open a second store, you need to have to rent a second place, and you need to hire a second team, sales team, right? So if you want to open a third store, you need to rent a third place and a third team, right? Like you need to rent people. But for example, let's give the example of a software. If I have a software company, you just need to download, for example, Google Chrome. You can use Google Chrome and you can have 5,000 million people. It's a little bit too much, but 1,000 million people in the world using Google Chrome. And the cost, what it's called the marginal cost, the extra cost for Google is zero. It's negligible, okay? So that is what it's, in this context, is what it's associated with the concept of scalability, okay? It's not just you can replicate, you can grow, no, you need to scale, all right? But among all these features, for me, that's why I highlighted this, the real one that defines what a startup is uncertainty. And a startup, it's what it's called an experiment. Once you stop experimenting, probably it's because you found product market fit, as we saw earlier, and then that means you're not startup anymore. You know who you are, you know who your customers are, you know that they are willing to pay for your product. So now your goal changed to let's survive, let's find our customers and make sure that they want to buy the product we are building, that this is useful for them and it creates value, to how do we start growing the company? Okay, we have 20 customers, they love the product. How do we go to 50, 100, 1,000, a million? All right. And then we mentioned this also earlier. Okay, after product market fit is so important in itself, is a milestone, and it makes, many times it signals the change from being a startup to scale up. Okay. All right. So how to understand a little bit better the loop, the build, measure, learn loop. Okay. Basically, the most important part here is to establish the hypothesis, okay? To define what is it that we want to learn. Do we want to learn whether our customers would like to use our solution, whether our customers would be comfortable using it, whether they would be willing to switch for their current solution to our solution, because those questions are totally different, okay? And these details mark all the difference, okay? Then once we define that, we build the minimum, the MVP, the minimum viable product that we can use to extract that learning, okay? And in the end, we just measure, did we achieve the result we were thinking about or not? And then basically we follow this process. We establish the baseline, extremely important when you formulate your hypothesis. We tune the engine. So what we just saw is just one loop of the cycle, right? But this is going to happen every week, every 2 weeks, or every 3 weeks, no more than that, okay? So this is not one loop, this is an engine. In the next iteration, you have to go through the whole process again, okay? So that's why it's also important that the process, and we mentioned that in the first slide, I think, the process, the execution of that process, the speed of that process, it's perfectly tuned, all right? And in the end, something that, it's a concept that I don't know if many of you know, if you're familiar with it or not, but then we have to make a decision. Do we pivot or do we persevere? We will see right now what a pivot is for those of you who are not familiar with the concept, but basically this is something also that the recommendation, even from the classical definition of the framework, is set the time, all right? It's not just let's start with the iterations and we will decide later when to make this decision. No, we want to launch a project, right? So we start today and then we decide, okay, in 3 months exactly, we're going to sit down and we're going to make this decision, pivot or persevere, or in 2 months. And then after another 2 months, all right? Because otherwise you will get caught up with all the workload and you will end up not even without being aware of it, you will end up not being able to make this decision, all right? Okay, so basically, definition of pivot, in case you didn't know, but a pivot is to change the direction of the business, but staying grounded in the learnings you have achieved. Okay, we've been talking about how important learning is, right? So, okay, I've learned, for example, that yes, people have a cybersecurity problem. Companies have a cybersecurity problem. We've learned that. And we've learned that they want to find a solution. And we've learned that their budget is not 1 million euros, as we said earlier. So it's just 10,000 euros. Okay, so then we pivot. We keep with the same customers. We keep with the same problem that we want to solve. We're just trying to find another way of solving that problem, okay? And here, a really extremely important thing, because this is not all theory, right? This has to be put into practice. Especially, I don't know, because this is an international project and European level project, so different countries, different cultures have different concepts. I'm totally aware of that. So I'm going to use the example, and again, it's a generalization, okay? Not everybody's like this, but there is a consensus that, for example, in Spanish culture, we reject failure, okay? In the US, if you fail, it's okay. It's okay to fail. It's part of the process, all right? In some other cultures, if you fail, maybe you will be, people will look at you as I don't know, you fail, okay, you're not good enough. And pivoting, even though failure is not that bad, but pivoting is not quitting, okay, it's not failing, it's actually improving, all right? So again, as you can read it here, okay, but failure, the pressure to avoid failure is huge, but in the startup community, it's even bigger, okay? If you want to get deeper, dig deeper into this, you have the link there, okay? And oops, sorry. Here, remember how I told you earlier what the MVP was and that you don't even need to build something? Okay, there are 3 ways, at least 3, but there are many others, okay? There are 3 ways in which people do not even avoid creating an MVP. So it's called video MVP, concierge MVP, but they're not really MVPs because you don't have the product yet, okay? So what is a video MVP? It's something that can save you a lot of headaches and a lot of money. So you want to build a software to improve through artificial intelligence to improve water usage in agriculture, right? You have couple of options. You can hire a team, artificial intelligence engineers, developers, researchers, and then develop the solution. And in 6 months, you start talking to people, or you go make a video with fake screens. And of course, you don't lie to people. You don't tell them you have the product. But you show the product. You show what the product will look like, what the benefits of the product will look like, right? And then in a couple of days, you make a video. You don't need to wait until you have the solution. And then you go to your potential customers. Don't go to all of them. That's why we said earlier, don't plan a big launch, like with PR, communication, etc. No, just go to a very small group of people and talk to them and see their feedback. If they like it, okay, start recruiting the team, okay? Something like that. Then there is another approach, which is the concierge. Well, by the way, the video MVP, it can be a video, but it can be a website. You build a website and there's no product yet, but you send people to your website to see if they click, if they pay, or they would like to pay. Once people want to pay, maybe you show, and this is a funny anecdote that the author of the Lean Startup mentions, which is they spend months building something, they put up a website, and even when you pay, they design the page after you pay, say, hey, your payment has been successful. Thank you for buying. Here is your invoice, blah, 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 right? Okay. He said, we could have put an error page there because nobody paid. Nobody clicked the paying button, okay? So this is something that can be done also through a website, for example, and it's actually done many times. Another approach is the concierge MVP. The concierge MVP is similar to the previous one, but basically it's concentrating in one or a few potential customers and focusing only on them. Using their feedback, instead of use it with your team to define the specifications, you let them, because you trust them, you trust that they're the leaders of their sector or anything, and then you trust them to help you define the product, okay? And then the Wizard of Oz, this fancy name, is because actually, and this may sound crazy, but I know a few startups that have done that, and some of them are doing that now. It's like, all right, I have a solution that uses artificial intelligence so that when you go to a website to buy plane tickets, you don't need to tell me anything. You just write, I want to go on holidays next month to a place where I can see the mountains. And then the artificial intelligence will understand what you want to do, when you want to do it, and will give you some proposals, okay? All right, that sounds pretty cool, except that it's not real. There is a person behind it that when you see that, there is not a software doing it. The person will read your text and will do the job. It's manually done. But at least they're testing whether this is a concept that people would use, okay? Even though in the back end is not done through software or through automation, there are real people doing that, okay? And this is more common than it may seem. Okay, let's use the example now of software, because it's the classical example, okay? You can see these little stars over here in the screen, so keep in mind in that part, okay? The traditional way of doing software development is what it's called the waterfall, in which you define requirements, specifications, you start the design, implementation, verification, and maintenance. Okay, this is super, and everybody can relate to this, okay, because it's traditional. The unit of progress, as we said earlier, is the advance. Okay, when you move to the next stage, you're making progress, right? And this is spectacularly good. except that only in certain settings. For example, when the problem is known and the solution is known, okay? But if you don't know what the solution is and you don't even know what the problem is, then you cannot apply this because you cannot define the requirements. You cannot define the specifications. You need to first do that work, okay? And that is what a startup is for. Then there is an evolution, which is the agile product development, okay? So then the problem is known. Now we know the problem, but we don't know the solution yet. So we now the progress is how many line of codes we've written, how much progress, real tangible progress we've made, right? Towards that unknown solution. But then what the Lean Startup proposes is, as we said earlier, is change all that, okay? Because the problem is unknown, the solution is unknown, and the unit of progress is only validated learning. So you have these cycles of customer development, agile development, and this is pretty much the way of doing it, okay? I've included here this Steve Blank, and you have the link in the resources page, okay? And at the beginning of the session, when I share the resources, this is the author I mentioned, okay? It's a reference, and again, I encourage you to read his work. And this is pretty much it for the specific part. I don't know if you have any questions. Basically, super important in the general part, I try to highlight the MVP concept, and in the second part, the pivot concept and how to implement this with an agile methodology, and a little bit more tangible. These two concepts are the main ones here, okay?
All right, Raul, thank you very much. It seems like there are no new questions on the chat. However, I do remember one participant from the previous break for questions and answers that requested to have his microphone open. So I will proceed to open his microphone and see if, yeah, he's still here. Slipchevik. So now you have your microphone open.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, it was just I wanted to refer to the Miss Rueda. Sorry if I'm not pronouncing okay. I'm from medical faculty at University of Split, and I'm a lawyer. So I'm working with scientists, and working part-time job is on IP. So as Mr. Rueda said, it was too big at the moment. It's just the education on this part, as we are doing it, as you are helping us and making improvement on that part, that from the students to the professors on our medical faculty, and I think the other parts of the university, they are still not aware of the possibilities. So that's the organism that it's living, and it's growing. As I told my colleague that left at the office because she's doing another job, if you're 1 month late in this part, you are late. Yeah, so it's you always have to be. So we tried, and 11 years ago, when I finished some WIPO Academy courses for lawyer part, we tried to involve our medical students to have subjects that they can choose to already know what kind of how should I say it, that they already know what to do as a students to have a recognition of what they are doing, of their value, and everything that may come out of this they're studying, and after that their scientific work. So it was just at the time when Mr. Rueda was talking, it was actual, but thank the colleague Ramon that included me afterwards. But at the moment, I just wanted to say, not as no one who knows it all, yeah, but as someone who did this here in practice as a lawyer on a medical faculty, where medical students are. I don't know anything about medicine, but I know that it will provide the inventions, innovations, and there's a lots of things that had to be done to be successful in that part. So that's when you said it's. I'm now referring to Ms. Rueda. When you said it was too big, everybody has to know basics. And this is why I'm, again, after so many years, involving myself, because we are trying to do that thing and make it successful. And so it may not be the right argument for after this lecture, but it was for the one before. So thank you. I just wanted to say that, and this is how it has to be done. Education, 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 from the law parts to the scientific part. Yeah. So that's it. That's it for me. And thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your comments. Juanra, I don't know if you want to add anything else.
No, I think that we are ready to go on with the next section. If you are
perfect,
if you are good with that.
Yeah, just before we move on, okay, let me just change the screen. But actually, by now, I don't know if anybody has any questions. By now, everybody should know what Lean Startup is. Okay, we've covered the core. That's why it's okay. We've passed the time, but it's okay. All right. By now, everybody should have the intuition about what is it, what are the main concepts, etc. Okay. And by the way, taking into account the last comment, which is super interesting. It is true that, for example, in certain sectors, education, even law practice, but in certain sectors, you, for example, you need to have what is called a sandbox. You cannot imagine you want to create a project in the financial industry. You want to create a new bank, a new kind of bank. You cannot just do that. There is a very regulated. It is a very regulated market, right? So, for example, in the medical sector, the same thing. You cannot just have anyone creating startups and play with our health, right? So it's super interesting. Okay. So yeah, the core is covered. The core is covered, and then let's go to Lean Canvas. Just first off, there will be another webinar for this one that is highlighted here. You know, the business model canvas. Okay, so we will have a session to talk about what business model is, okay, why it's important, and we'll go into many details in case anybody wants to join that one as well. Okay, but just so you know, the Lean Canvas is actually not a methodology. It's a tool. It's a tool. Okay, it's a tool that allows you to, in one page, make a summary. It's like, imagine you write your resume, your CV, right? In one page, you have to say everything about you. So this, in one page, you have to say everything about your startup. Okay, we will see an example later. Okay, why do I put here? I mentioned something about this earlier. Okay, business model. We will have a webinar for that. But business model, basically, in a sentence, is the way a company defines how they make money. As simple as that. Okay, we can make it as complex as we want, but the intuition is that the business model of a company is how do they make money. And this can be a one-time purchase. So how does a clothing store make money? Okay, they take a margin every time you purchase, right? That's all. How does a real estate agent make money? Well, commission-based. Every time there is a purchase, they get a commission from another person, right? From a third party. How does Netflix make money? Not every time you watch a movie or a series, right? You have a subscription model. They charge you every month, right? So basically, business model is saying, who pays you? Is it for example, in the case of Netflix, is it the final user, or is it the advertiser, right? Because right now, Netflix is entering the advertising model. There will be more people advertising within Netflix, like in Amazon Prime. So who pays for the party, for the service? Do I pay as the final user, or is the advertiser who pays, or is someone else? How much and when? How often? Defining these three things, we have your business model, pretty much, okay? Why is this important? And I give you an example that combines business and science, pretty much. I don't know, and as you can probably see by now, it's I like physics a little bit. It's just a hobby, okay? I don't know anything about it, but I use this as an example because I think it's, I don't know, it's super relevant, okay? Jack Kilby, he got the premium, the Nobel Prize. Actually, he got, if I'm not mistaken, half of it. There were three people, two of them share half of the prize in year 2000, and he got the other half, okay? So he got his half of the Nobel Prize, pretty much by building integrated circuits, okay, which is at the heart, at the core of any device nowadays, right? But it took him to win a Nobel Prize. I mean, that's not easy task, right? So basically the idea I want to, and this is my contribution, okay? Please, this is not the author or Lean Startup, this is just my idea. So then if you need to complain or anything, just come to me, okay? But you can see how hard sometimes it is to come up with something groundbreaking. If you want to innovate at a scientific level, you have to pretty much win a Nobel Prize or invent a new vaccine or something if you want to really have a huge impact. And how easy, please take it again with caution, it's not easy, but how easy it is, for example, for a software company like Symantec, to do pretty much the same. They did the same without having to dedicate years of research and everything, okay? Basically what they did is they changed their business model. Many years ago, like 20, 30 years ago, people, probably 20 something years ago, people would just buy an antivirus. Nobody buys an antivirus now anymore, but people would just buy an antivirus. You go to the store, you buy your license, 50 euros or in the currency that we had at the time in each country, right? You buy it and then you use it for a period of time. If you want, you buy a new license. And then they changed to a subscription model. What does it mean? They changed the rules of the game. They were pioneers in changing that. So everybody else was surprised, was shocked. Everybody else had to adapt to the way, because people would much rather prefer to pay a small amount every month than just a huge amount every year and go to the store and get the package and install it, right? So you install it once and download the updates automatically. So then by changing the business model, they changed the rule of the games. They pretty much eradicated their competition and they were a huge success. So, I mean, again, this is not simple, okay? And also the other way is not that hard. So I'm putting the two extremes, more or less, okay? But that's so you can see how you can, by defining well your business model, probably you can achieve a lot more and a lot faster, which is the key here, than with certain other things, okay? And this is super important for you guys, for people like us, who dedicate a lot of effort to research. It's sad that sometimes we lack that last part of putting that into practice in a commercial way, if that's what we want to do, okay? If not, that's also totally fine. All right, so here for us to see what the Lean Canvas is pretty much really simple, okay? It's really simple. This is like it's a one-page tool in which you define all the key aspects of your business. You can download it from this URL, you can use it. We have some examples at the end of the session. And basically, normally it would take just 1 hour to go through this and explain each of the blocks, okay? So apologies for this, but I'm not going to go through all of them, okay? You can just check later if you have specific questions, but let me give you two ideas. One of them is you can see the little red star, unique value proposition, sorry. If you have to choose only one thing, probably that's the thing you need to focus on, okay? I think there are 9 blocks, because there are different versions, okay? There are 9 blocks, right? If you have to choose only one block, make sure you nail your unique value proposition. What is it that you offer to your customers, okay? And the second thing is normally in a chronological order, you would start by the ones that I've marked as first. You would start by defining who your customers are and what problem do they have. Okay, this is the first step. Not the most important one necessarily. As I said, the most important one is probably the unique value proposition, but the first ones in a chronological order would be those two, okay? All right, questions about Lincoln Canvas? This module is just shorter, so also we're running out of time. I'm checking the progress, so any questions about this? Wonder if not, we move on. I see the chat is empty, so
exactly, the chat is empty. So if you want, we can go on. Yes.
Great. All right. So now this is a personal contribution. Okay, we've learned what Lean Startup is. Also, how to use a tool. I don't know. It's extremely simple, and it comes with practice. Okay, after you've done 10,000 Lean Startup Lean Canvas, then you get used to doing them super easy, okay? There are normally workshops to learn how to use them, how to fill them up proficiently, but okay. This part, what I would like to share with you is my idea of what are some of the challenges you may face as a potential spin-off, spin-out, as a potential project in the educational sector, in research, something that it's called deep tech, right? In the deep tech projects normally take 3 to 5 years to complete, you know, so those are a little bit more complicated, sometimes in the context of a university or educational institution. So, all right, this list is not extensive, okay? I mean, is just, it could be any other list, all right? But okay. For example, reasons, I'm going to use the example we mentioned at the beginning, reasons why startups fail. And I'm going to compare what practitioners say with what scholars say. All right. So let's have a look. The one on the left is what practitioners say. Of course, a fancy diagram, 101 interviews by CB Insights, a top institution. Okay, no complaining about them or anything. Okay, please, I don't want any legal problems. But you can see a lot of factors. Some of them, I don't know, we could say not poorly defined, but okay, it could be debatable. Some of them, sometimes there is some overlap, etc. Okay, but the main conclusions are similar. Okay, but okay. So first one, no market need, okay? Run out of cash, not the right team, get out compete, okay. It is true, I told you earlier, no market need, no product market fit, okay? People don't buy your product. This is especially important for you, as we said, because of the long time it takes sometimes to do your research. How does this happen in a more academic world? Because there are researchers studying this also, reasons why startups fail. So, for example, you have Eisenman from last year. Of course, you see the sample size is 470 founders. Probably, I am assuming this, okay? I don't know the details, especially about the CB Insights then, because of transparency. You know, there is not the same transparency as in the academic world, right? I don't know how they define the sample, how they choose the people to interview, if there is, for example, some selection bias, survival bias, or any other bias through that could affect the sample or the analysis. I'm just assuming that the one on the right is more rigorous, let's say, okay? Larger sample size, and look at the conclusions. There are three conclusions, there are not 50, okay? Keep in mind, misalignment between team members, investors or partners, allocation of capital to ambiguous ideas. So again, not defining well enough and not iterating so that you know what you're building. Early customers' false success. This is very important. I put this here because normally we are rejecting hypotheses here, okay, in startup, as in research normally. But the other is not necessarily true. Okay, many startups fail because they assume that the early success of the first customers can be generalized. So we have to be really aware of this. Why? Because the methodology we normally use is we go to closer people in our network, we go to the easier customers, and those returns tend to decrease. Okay, so that is super important. But basically, the idea of this slide is to show the two approaches, completely different. Okay, if you go into the startup world, don't expect to have the same level of rigor, or let's say like that, when you make decisions. Okay. Oh, this is by far for me the major problem. Okay, I copied this. This is, sorry for so much text. I copied this literally because I wanted to show you that this is not me writing it. This is how venture capitalists or public institutions talk about. When I talk about public institutions, I'm not talking about universities. Okay, I'm about public institutions who fund, that give you funds for, and not for research, for technology transfer. So basically, dedication. Okay, and even if an investor or a partner doesn't tell you, one of the we know from the previous slide, one of the major risk factors for failure is the team. So unfortunately, researchers, we normally have to do our research or teach or any other obligations at your institution, at your university, and maybe not the whole team, or sometimes not even one person in the team. I've worked with some people in this situation, and the project gets stuck. Okay, maybe fascinating research results, but no commercial viability. Okay, for the dedication of the team. Okay, this Y Combinator. Y Combinator, I don't know if it rings a bell. If it's Y Combinator, is it's a startup. Is an accelerator founded by Paul Graham. Is one of the most important ones in the world. You have the link there. And by the way, I didn't mention it at the beginning, but I will share the presentation with all the links and everything, okay, in case you want to check any of them. But I found it super interesting how one of the most, this is probably, if you want to choose one institution, this is the one, okay? And look at the misconceptions they go through. You can start a company while continuing your academic career. This is, I quote this, okay? This is copied from their materials. This is a misconception. Normally, if you do exactly like this, nobody in your research team leaves the university. Normally, the odds of success go down dramatically, okay? Sorry, this is controversial, but this is, and that's why I quoted this, okay? Misconception number 2 is that you should find a CEO. That's not necessarily true, okay? A researcher, a professor can be a great CEO. Amazing, especially at the early stages when the management part is not that important, okay? Same with misconception 3. No business experience is necessarily needed, okay? That it's easier that a Nobel Prize learns how to sell a product than a salesperson has the knowledge of the person who won the Nobel Prize, okay? So you guys have the main asset, which is the knowledge and the product and the deep understanding of what you're trying to do, okay? And then the 4th important misconception, there are many other, is that you should, I see some people are kind of agreeing, yeah? You should raise money first and then leave the university. This is tricky, but it's extremely complicated, okay? Normally, because what this signals, and sorry, I've experienced this in my own projects and in many projects with whom I work. And it's just, if I'm an investor and you come to me and you say, hey, Raul, I need whatever amount, okay? Imagine that I can afford the amount. €1 million, I cannot afford that, but imagine I could. Or 10,000 euros, whatever. And then I will leave the university and I will put into practice, I will commercialize my solution. My first question would be, okay, so you expect me to risk my money for something that you're not so sure that it will work? Because if you were so sure, then you would leave the university first, right? So then it's tricky. It just, we'll not go in details today, but it's just really tricky, okay? I'm just making you aware of the things that could happen in case you weren't before, okay? And then the others, I've grouped them in bureaucracy, Normally, spin-offs, spin-outs, or any other projects come in or working with public institutions for that matter, but especially with universities sometimes because of their specific nature. They have more bureaucracy, which goes against, and I put here, lean. It goes against this speed, this iteration, this flexibility, okay? Overconfidence, which is related with perfectionism and fall in love with your idea. Okay, overconfidence, it means that because we are the experts in our area, whatever area it is, it's hard sometimes. Maybe our egos tend to be stronger than they should for the commercial or the startup, at least. Well, okay. The key point here is to listen to others and be extremely flexible to change, as we said, okay? So it's hard if you've been working on a project for 5 years or 10 years that an outsider comes and tells you, why don't you change this? Our first reaction intuitively normally is, well, I've been working on this for 10 years. You have just heard about this for 5 minutes. How are you going to give me feedback? Well, maybe it's good to listen, okay? Perfectionism, same thing. And falling in love with your idea. This applies to any entrepreneur because this goes against the lean methodology, but especially for the history we have in a more academic setting, okay? Here, questions about this? Anyone wants to share another challenge that they see or anything is not clear? Do you disagree? I know this is a little bit controversial, okay? So anyway, we are in the questions section now, so we will cut this from the recording. But if anybody wants to raise, Juanra?
It seems at first that the chat, the comment section is quite silent, it's quite shy. However, I do have a question in this regard, because I believe that this challenges section is especially relevant for us within this course aimed at postdoctoral researchers or young or early stage researchers in general, and how difficult it is, as you have mentioned, to combine both careers, a career in academia and a career in business, which is nearly impossible, and how difficult it is for those researchers who do have a business idea, a business plan, but might be subject to certain bias that make them overconfident, or that make them simply fall in love with their idea, which is not so good at the end of the day. And my question was, are there any tools or any advice you might provide to an early stage researcher with a business idea? Look, you should think of this, you should consider this, so that your possible biases could be overcome, so that you can see more clearly whether your idea is worthy or not. What could you advise to them to clearly know whether their idea is relevant or not, whether they should or not leave eventually their academic career and get into business? How can they know?
Okay, so that is a great question. Okay, Juanra. I would say short answer. Okay, I would say the key element here is compromising, balance. There are different ways, right? Like, for example, in software development, it's normally said, and this applies to many other situations, it's normally said you cannot have something fast, cheap, and of good quality, okay? You have 3 features, you have to choose 2 of them, right? So here's the same. Do you want to, imagine you have a decision tree, okay? Say, are you willing to give up your research career to go work on your project? If the answer is yes, okay, well, so then there's no more discussion, right? If the answer is no, then we start questioning, so what are you willing to give up to do that? Is anybody else in your research team willing to give up? The answer is yes, well, problem solved. If the answer is no, okay, then what are you guys willing to give up? Then are you willing to give up part of the equity the equity of the company, right? Like the a percentage of it. You want me to be your CEO? Are you going to give me 10%, 15%, 20%? No, I don't want to give you a CEO that money because, well, then you know what I mean. It's like heuristic process. The more restrictions you put, the harder it is. For me, it's as simple as that. Okay. I don't know if I answered your question sufficiently, Juanra.
Yes, it does. It does. Definitely. At the end of the day, it's about making decisions, and not so easy decisions that might compromise or even jeopardize the final completion of the idea.
And keeping in mind always one thing, okay? These are just like, let's say in a very informal way, is the rule of thumb, okay? These are risk factors and everything. It doesn't mean that you cannot do it, okay? Just the same way that you can be smoking your whole life and not develop lung cancer, or you cannot exercise and not don't have overweight or diabetes or whatever, okay? So, I mean, if you want to do it, do it. But what the doctors say is that you should exercise, eat healthy, and don't smoke, blah, 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 right? So, okay, here, let's try to be a little bit rigorous here, okay? What the evidence suggests is that this is a risk factor. It's your call if you want to do it or not, okay? And then you balance, you commit to what you're doing, okay? And Juanra, I don't know, we have just a quick question because we didn't talk about this. We're finishing, okay? We're finishing, but also, I mean, in both sense, because the time is finishing, but also because the content is about to end, okay? But we have a question from Daisy. Do we have time to go through it? Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I was about to say that. It seems like both Daisy has something to say according to the chat, and also Hirop Slipchevich also raised his hand. So let's give a word to Daisy first, and then to the other participant. All right, Daisy, you should be able now to open your microphone. Yeah.
Hey, no, I just want to say, like, I'm learning. I am first year PhD student, and just like you said, the second misconception about hiring a CEO to run the spin-off, that's what we found in the literature review as the main concern, main challenge to run the spin-off. And just saying that it's a little confusing. You say an academic can run the spin-off, but the literature says no, that's the mistake that the spin-offs are doing, and they don't have enough knowledge to, basically the business knowledge, the leadership business knowledge to run the spin-offs. And that's why most of the spin-offs fails. Just saying that. No, what I have read so far, I don't know.
No, and Daisy, this is really a great comment, and I'm more than open to discussion and to more contributions for sure. Keep in mind one thing though, okay? This is from a private. Actually, go to the previous slide. The difference you're explaining is exactly what I mentioned here. Okay, you're talking about the right part, a very rigorous approach, and your answer probably will be more reliable. Okay, if I had to make a decision, I would probably trust you more. Okay, these guys, as much as they are the top institution in the world for startup acceleration, keep in mind one thing. First of all, they're based in opinions, in their interviews, in blah, blah, but there is not like a research process like an academic would do, okay? And the second thing is, keep in mind one thing, the limitations of their scope, geographical, by industry, by stage, you know, so that is something to keep in mind, okay? So probably if we go deeper, you probably are right. Or I mean, there is something like with this evidence, sometimes we find evidence in one sense, sometimes we find in another, okay? So as I always say, take this with caution, okay? Go to the source, I put the source here, and keep in mind the limitations of the source. But I agree with you, okay? If I were to make a decision, I like it better, and it's part of my everyday fight to go for the right approach. The right, I mean, that it's in the right part, not in the left, okay?
No, it's just because it's my topic of research. So that's why
Great.
I've just been doing that. So that's a kind of, I don't want to say wrong because I'm just investing on that, but
Of
That's
course.
why.
And by the way, it's a great topic. Okay, we probably should talk about this after
Yes,
the
sure. I
webinar.
will contact you.
Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much. Now I will open Mr. Shripchevik's microphone so that he can have a word. You should have now your microphone open.
Unmute. You hear me now?
Yes, now.
Yeah, maybe I'm the last one in the scientific world. You are all in a scientific part. I'm the bureaucracy part, and in university, I see my colleague Nikola Balic send a question in the messages to ask for sharing a literary review. But I just wanted to comment. I have to comment it from the other side, not scientific, but the bureaucracy part of the all happening from starting and confidence, and from the first thing that if I don't know if this is missed information or it doesn't had to be said right here. But if you're doing your research in a university's part, then it's not yours. Yeah. So about you will get maybe 20%. It's not all about the money, but when you are making it commercial. If you did something in your academic, your university part of the job, by their resources and their time, you cannot take it away and make it your own company. Yeah. That's why we had those spin-offs and startups, and we had now in a new 100 scientists in the world from our faculty, medical, from Split. We have 5 people, and they are extremely acknowledged in that part. Yeah, and they know about it, but we have lots of more young and upcoming scientists that they just don't know this part of bureaucracy and these problems that we are talking about. So I'm here to as a colleague Nikola Balic and Lana Barac to make this happen and to translate this knowledge to them. So just wanted to say that it's a organism that it's quite complicated, and lots of people have to be involved, and you have to be dedicated, and the decisions you make are crucial. And as earlier said, failure, it's not a stopping point, it's I don't know, you have to continue and learn from mistakes. I'm not trying to be the educator here, but just some pointers from not scientific parts, but the bureaucracy parts of the whole story. So that's just what I wanted to, maybe it's not, I haven't exactly point out the real things, but I think it should be said in context of what already has been said. So thank you. Sorry if it was missed in a way.
Great. Thank you for your contribution as well. Okay.
All right. So it seems like we have one more participant willing to have a word. So Masuma Shoduri, I will open your microphone so that now you will be able to speak.
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thanks. It was really a very fruitful and well-explained webinar. I'm Masuma Choudhury. I can see one of my professor from UCA, Maria Lorena Martin Diaz. I was her student during my master's program in Wakoma. Hi, Professor. Okay, so I want to share some of my experience and some of my doubts because I think it's a good platform to share it. Actually, I am working in a commercial company, as well as I am doing my PhD at the Cadiz University. I'm doing an industrial PhD between a collaboration of European Space Agency incubated company and the Cadiz University. In my company, what I do or what we do is we have a scientific team. We develop products and sell them to the end users. I am actually running a scientific team of like 5 scientists, and we have our own small team where, as you mentioned, that we develop products, go to the to our customers, take their feedback, then we improve our product, we develop new products and increase our number of products to the commercial sector. However, in our company, we also provide supports to the university. For example, we have been talking to several professors who were willing to give their research a commercial value or a commercial phase. But the problem is we don't understand the bureaucratic part. Like for me, I'm not talking about the full company or the bosses, but as a team of scientific leader, as a leader of the scientific team, I would like to know when we are willing to do a collaboration between a commercial company and a university, what is the main priority to consider, or where should be the trade-off between these two? Many of the professors, they don't have the proper knowledge to commercialize their research, even though they think that there is a huge market. On the other hand, they are very hesitating to share their research that they did for a long time and to give it to the commercial sector. So my point is, where should be the trade-off? What should be the main focus, or which part of the bureaucracy should we consider while during this collaboration?
Thank you, Masuma. Juanra, if you want, I will try to give a very short answer because the topic is a super is a huge topic. Okay, we could be debating about this for a long time. But then if you want to add anything from a more like, I don't know, official or institutional perspective, just you guys go ahead and do it, okay? But at least from my perspective, if I understood I tried to follow the whole thought process. Basically, in the end, the question is, or I try to reduce it to this, how can we enable those researchers or those professors that have some intellectual property that, as it was mentioned earlier,
yes,
it doesn't belong necessarily to them as people, but the intellectual property belongs to the research group or to the university or to a group of stakeholders. That's perfect. So how do we enable them that may not have the commercialization capacity, right? And
yes,
yeah, exactly. So the answer is pretty simple. This, in my opinion, we don't need to reinvent the wheel here. Okay, there are ways in which you can just directly sell the intellectual property. You can license the intellectual property, or then you can get to an agreement of collaboration. The problem here, and that's why I'm not trying to avoid the question, okay? But the problem is this is so huge, and it's like we talked earlier about the other question. We have to see case by case. Each university, the bureaucracy is different. Their capabilities,
okay,
I mean, the sector, which sector is the company, you know? So as a general rule, I would say there are already established mechanisms to enhance or to enable at least that collaboration. Which one is the best, or I think it depends on, it would have to be analyzed on a case-by-case basis, okay? I don't know, sorry for not being able to provide with a deeper answer, but it's just for time constraints, okay, Masuma?
okay, no worries. Thank
But if
you.
if you want, either through the organization or reach out to me, I can give you my opinion. I elaborate a little bit more at a different time, okay, if you want, all right?
Okay, thank you.
Cool.
Thank you very much. Firstly, to the participants for all your questions, and of course to our speaker, Raul, for your answers and all the interesting comments, and that is in fact raising many questions. We have even one more question. It seems someone else raised his hand. How do you want us to proceed, Raul? Because there are certain things and we might have to go on a little bit more, or how do you want to proceed?
Perfect. My idea, if you give me, look, I'm going to show here in the screen now the examples I have. Look, these are a few examples. I wanted to go through them for a few reasons. I'm going to explain you the reasons why I chose them. And okay, the two first examples are about Lean Startup, and the others are about Lean Canvas. All right. Why I chose these is because they are like the classical examples. They're freely available in the internet. You can read about them. Okay. Pretty much everybody will know these companies: Amazon, Google, the Facebook, right? So. And we can evaluate them with a little bit of historical perspective already, even though if it's been sometimes like 20 years or something, but they're not so recent that they're still evolving, okay? So I would say, Juanra, if it's okay with you, I prefer to go, because we only have a few minutes. So we go with the question. I think there is one more or a couple of more, and we skip the examples. In the examples, we were just going to read a little bit what is written there and give you a little bit more information, but actually it can be found online relatively easy. If anybody's interested. Sounds good?
Sounds perfectly good, Raul. Sounds
great.
Perfectly good. So I will open Bahram's microphone so that now you should be able to speak.
Yeah. Hello. Thanks for the presentation. So it was very interesting. Actually, here we are in Cadiz and we are working on some software development aspect for medical health and this kind of thing. Actually, we are working on MRI image and nice. Automatizing the process. So with some software, we are researchers, but the idea is that if we can improve this, go one step more and make the software more commercialized in this, or in a way of a startup or a spin-off and this kind of thing. So there is a lot of challenge. So challenge from University of Project, actually it applies to us because we do not have, we are focusing on scientific aspect and papers, so writing papers, doing some research, and at the same time, this software. So it's I understood that from the what you present, it's difficult or it's impossible to do that. But maybe I don't know if we can get some other collaborations. I don't know if what do you think that okay, this challenge can be solved with some other things, or I don't know how it's somehow you are confused because you are doing all the time on research and then you want to more advanced, and all the time when you do not have enough knowledge, you are searching for knowledge, and still you are not confident because you didn't put all the time on this.
Okay. Yeah, again, a super interesting topic. Okay, let me use this contribution, the way you participated, because I think it's funny. There is a paper published a couple of years ago, I think 3 years ago. I forgot about the date. Okay, but it's about using MRI, functional MRI, to evaluate the passion of entrepreneurs when they talk about their projects. And it's super complex. How do we measure passion? This is a different kind of thing, but they basically used functional MRI to try to measure passion and correlate that with how much capital they raised. So if investors perceived passion in entrepreneurs when they talk about their projects, they would. The conclusion of the article was like they would get about 25% more money. Something like that. So. It's super. I use the MRI case because it's super interesting, the things we can do with those things, right? And also why I think this is interesting. Going back to the question or to the topic, you guys are, as researchers, probably, and I try to circle in the example, you will show more passion than anybody else talking about your project. You know, the problem is, are you willing to is that what you want to do? Do you want to continue doing research? Do you want to balance and continue doing research and the business part? Do you only want to do the business part because you're tired? This is a very personal choice situation, you know, so it's really is extremely hard. What we can give, or I can give from my experience, okay, I've also, this is the topic of my research, so I've read quite a bit. As I said, a few years of experience with talking with hundreds of entrepreneurs, interacting with them on a daily basis, as I said. And I mentioned this because I think it's super important. As an economist also, but mainly as an anthropologist, I try to use the methods of an anthropologist. I go and work with entrepreneurs and observe how they work, what problems do they have, and I try to get in their skin and understand all of those things for years already. Okay, for 4 or 5 years I've been doing that. Okay, also as a kind of a data acquisition practice. So I can only give you my experience. Okay, but I would say that if it's a personal choice. There are risk factors. There are certain information that can help you, but in the end is your choice. Okay.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Again, we are just well, we ran out of time. From my side, I can only say once again, thank you very much to Raul. Thank you, because it has been an astonishing presentation, both for in terms of content and also, of course, in terms of skills of the speaker. I just have to say one more thing, just for all of you to know. This presentation will be made available on the project's website once the recordings are edited and so on. So stay tuned, because soon this presentation will be available there. And Raul, if you just want to say a few words before we shut down the live streaming on YouTube, please.
Thank you, Juan. Actually, this words is just, I'm extremely grateful, and really, it's an honor to be here and to be able to share these in a very humble way, but to share these with researchers, entrepreneurs, potential entrepreneurs. So thanks a lot for the organizations, and especially for the people participating today. Okay, watching today or watching later from home. Okay, thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Raul. Now we are shutting down, as I was saying, the live streaming on YouTube.